Hello and welcome to this very special episode of the Autocar Professional Dialogue. We have a very special guest today, and he is none other than Mr. Prakash Telang, former Managing Director of Tata Motors. Mr. Telang, thank you very much. It's a pleasure talking to you after a long time.
Hi Sumantran, nice to meet you again.
And lots to discuss. Maybe we may run out of time, but nonetheless, let's start off with the most relevant topic in the industry now,
Yes.
which is many would say as the mother of all challenges for the Indian automotive industry. That's meeting the BS6 norms. From your perspective, how do you see this challenge?
A very big challenge if you ask me, because I don't think any other country in the world has even attempted to go there. Good luck to the industry for rising to the challenge. I know all of them are preparing for that. But having said that, I mean, we'll tax the industry a lot in the process, but does the community get the full benefit of it or not? Right. If you have still the vehicles on the road, which are sort of pre-BS0 stage, still running on the road, then in that case, the community does not get the full benefit. So I think probably whilst government is asking the manufacturers to do their bit with coming out with better technologies, I think we need to do something in terms of enforcement also, and retirement policies. At some point of time, government was talking about commercial vehicles. There should be a strict retirement policy of 15 years, but somehow probably we seem to have lost steam somewhere. I think they should seriously think about that part too.
On the other hand, there is also a strong focus on promoting electric stroke hybrid mobility. Do you think that the scheme, the intent is being executed in the right spirit? Do you think so?
I'm not so sure about electric vehicles per se, because if your energy is very clean, that's one part.
Okay.
But if more than 90% of the energy in India is being generated by coal, you're not doing very much.
So the well-to-wheel concept is not that the viable option.
The well-to-wheel concept probably it doesn't work out very well.
Okay.
On one side. Secondly, in India, the charging infrastructure, etc., is also not adequate. And thirdly, the range anxiety of the electrical vehicles, because most normal electrical vehicles with the lithium-ion batteries also can't do more than 180 kilometers before recharge, and the charging time being in hours, etc. So it doesn't become so practical. So I'm not so sure that electric vehicles have a place anywhere in the world, and in India even worse perhaps.
And also in terms of, say, the evolution of the industry, if you were to look at it, for the Indian players, both in the vehicle OEM as well as supplier space, what do you think should be the key focus areas for the players? I'm barring the Bharat Forges or the Mothers and Sumis who are already well established globally, but the next rung who have aspirations. So what would you say to them?
Let's talk at two levels. One is the component suppliers.
Yeah.
I am surprised to see a lot of component manufacturers, subsystem manufacturers are making very major strides, and at the same time many international players also have come into India. So that being the case, the Indian OEM is now sort of spoiled for a choice in terms of the appropriate supplier. If you think about ABS, earlier, I mean, there are hardly any alternatives, but you have quite a few available. Then if you want to talk about any other control systems, etc., again, it's fairly easily accessible. And many of the world-known component system suppliers also have set up shop in India, so that's become very easily available. So that's really good. Second advantage that I personally believe that India will always have, because of labor arbitrage and good quality of skilled labor, which is going to be a huge advantage. But otherwise, if you talk about the natural economic forces, I believe that probably India has a major advantage, and some of the companies already started seeing the advantage, like Ford and Maruti and Nissan, etc., Volkswagen. They started using India as a base for manufacture of the cars to be exported to different parts of the world. I believe in the commercial vehicle, the advantage would be even better, because commercial vehicles are far more labor intensive. So that being the case, then the advantage would be even bigger as we go forward.
And talking about the advantages of India, there is also a school of belief that India is perhaps losing that cost advantage from a labor perspective or even manufacturing, because many Indian subsidiaries of global OEMs, stroke suppliers, are learning the game, the low-cost game well, and therefore it's diluting the Indian low-cost advantage. Do you feel so?
I don't think so, because the Indian cost, let's say, probably is rising steadily. But even today, probably, I mean, it would be something like about 30% cheaper as compared to Chinese cost, Thailand, the competitive economies, or for that matter, Mexico, etc., and substantially lower as compared to say even Brazil or South Africa, and leave alone Korea, Japan, or so. So I mean, compared to those, I mean, will always be cheaper for quite some time. And there's an abundant skill supply available, and I'm very glad that government is doing a lot of work in terms of skill development.
Skill development, yes, there's
and
focus.
that will definitely come in very handy because you have a huge demographic dividend, but that dividend can turn into very nasty if you are not able to provide sufficient jobs for them.
Right.
So I think government is also taking a lot of steps in terms of establishing many new establishments. The new CSR policies are also making many of these industries also go closer to the educational institutions, work hand in hand with them. So I think it's going in the right direction according to me.
And if you look at the industry again, talking specifically about the commercial vehicle industry, that's also witnessing changes in terms of new entrants. And the other day someone was mentioning that yes, if you look at the ratio of population to the impact which we see in the development of the commercial vehicle industry, there's a huge scope of growth, but industry is not growing at that pace, and therefore perhaps there's a lot of overcapacity, and that could perhaps lead to some consolidation. Do you think so? Do you expect some consolidation in the Indian CV industry?
First address the part why the market is not growing so well. I think this is where probably I think government needs to do a lot more. They have to play a more role. One good thing probably that's already happening is that the road infrastructure is certainly shaping up better.
Okay.
And earlier there were a lot of problems in getting the projects moving off the ground because they were not getting sufficient clearances. The farmland was not available. Forest permissions from the one part of the government was also not easy to come by. And then there was the private-public partnership of the roads which was done. So some of the roads were not lucrative at all. So partners from the private sector had huge problems. So I think there are problems to be sorted out. I mean, we are learning in the process. We need to go forward. I do believe that Vijay Kelkar Commission has recommended to the government that there should be some very good mechanisms for dispute resolutions, etc., because they are bound to arise. If the project gets delayed, then the cost of construction has already gone up, then they expect a better returns, etc. So all that how to work out. Or supposing the traffic on the road turns out to be much higher than what we expected. If the payback is coming faster, then how should government get the benefit, etc. So these are the issues probably they need to sort out. But having said that, I think probably under Mr. Gadkari, I see that probably the road development is moving very rapidly. Once that happens, then probably more and more India will integrate it. Today your problem is that the consumption centers are only few and far between. Rest of the country is not getting the benefits of it. So with the result, they are not in the mainstream.
Right.
So you might say that probably, I mean, India is saturated so far as car is concerned at 13 per thousand, but then you find that the buying potential is only limited to that much.
Okay.
So how do you make sure that this economy starts to go into the rural areas, etc. So once you have very good roads coming in, mass transportation methods, and then the last mile travel with sort of sub 1 ton vehicles, etc. That's how it
hub and
was
spoke
far
model
more.
as it.
Hub and spoke model. So one of the things that must happen is that when the road starts to improve a lot, the average speed on the road also starts to go up. So government needs to worry about the safety standards on the road. So today, unfortunately, no vehicles are being inspected. Then the drivers are also not being educated properly. So that being the case, it becomes very hazardous. And if the speeds are much higher, in that case, the accidents are also far more disastrous.
Right.
The second problem has been the tolls. I do hope that government is doing something about the tolls to reduce the time taken, etc. Otherwise, somebody puts in a lot of money for buying a huge expensive vehicle and he finds most of the time it's idling either at the unloading point or at some octroi post or somewhere on the toll. It's not getting us anywhere.
Correct.
So I think these are some of the structural issues we'll have to sort out one by one, but I believe movements are happening there.
Are you expecting consolidation in the industry or in terms of number of players?
Difficult to say, but some of the marginal players I think are already sort of struggling a little bit. And earlier there was a thought that probably like in the car business, we had many more international players coming in a big way, so a similar thing would happen in the commercial vehicles. But one has to appreciate that the commercial vehicles in the international market are slightly different than the Indian market because they are far more sophisticated. They provide a lot more driver comfort, safeties and things like this. and which the Indian market has not evolved to that stage up till now. So that being the case, because abroad the driver is at a premium, so just to make sure the driver likes the vehicle, there are certain things which are absolutely minimum required, and the safety standards are also very high. You have to have a tachograph on the vehicle, so it will run only for 8 hours and not more, etc. So when those things start to happen in India, then probably it would be very different. In which case, a vehicle that runs in the European roads can automatically start working on Indian roads. But currently, that's not the situation. But having said that, that's a big advantage for the Indian makers, because there are many other countries in the African region, in the Asian region, who would want the vehicles sort of which are halfway between what the traditional Indian vehicles are and the current European vehicles are. And probably India is very well poised to provide those kinds of solutions.
And you expect GST, which we are expecting to kick in this year, to be a major game changer, I mean, of course, across sectors, but specifically to the automotive sector?
Well, it's not going to be a dramatic game changer per se, because from most accounts, what it appears is that the prices are not going to change dramatically. There may be no immediate changes, but in the long run, if the commerce increases a lot with the GST and all this simplification that happens, then obviously it's going to be a huge gainer for the country. So I personally believe GST was something we required, which was terribly overdue, and probably that has come in. At a time, it will take some more time for it to implement and stabilize, but one is looking at a long-term perspective, and I think it's a very good thing to happen.
And before we end with, I would like to get your take on the current performance of Tata Motors in the passenger vehicle business, which seems to be, the tide seems to be turning. How do you see it?
I'm not in touch so much, so frankly, you'll have to pardon me that I am not able to talk more in details. But having said that, I'm very pleased to see the vehicle Tiago, which I've seen on the roads and I've driven myself. I think it's a very contemporary vehicle, and probably, I mean, all the issues that we used to talk during mad times about fits and finishes, the leakages and some bus squeaks and rattles, etc. I think they have been addressed very well. Compliments to the boys who have done an exciting job. And I think Hexa also seems to be an excellent vehicle as it comes in the market. So I'm very glad that probably, I mean, Tata Motors seems to be clawing its way back, and whatever has been the learnings from Indica and the Manza and the Safari, etc., is coming into the play now. So I do hope that Tata Motors keeps on going further and further and comes out with more exciting models.
On that note, thank you very much, Mr. Telang. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks so much, man. Pleasure to meet you again.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for watching. Do follow us on Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and of course our online our website www.autocarpro.in for all the news and analysis and interviews such as this one with professionals from the automotive industry. Thank you.